What time are we supposed to start? I thought we were supposed to start.
No, I said there, well, changed a couple times, I didn't know exactly how long this year's gonna go. I said 8 times between 11 and 20, and then I got to think what how the experts are 40 times. So we're about on time. It was switching. Okay, we're going to continue this hearing on Senate Bill 731, and sir, I think you were in the seat when we recessed. I know that the senator and the student from Truman State were in conversation. I don't see him at this particular time. Okay, classes. Okay, so we're going to start with support of the bill. No? Opposition? Okay, that's okay. All right. So you're in the seat, I think, first, so you can you may proceed, introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. You may proceed.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kenny Mayberry. I'm an assistant director at the University Police Department at Southeast Missouri State University. What brings me here today is the bills concerning CCW on college campuses. A little bit about me. I'm a 30-year law enforcement veteran, ranging from county law enforcement, city law enforcement, to university law enforcement. I'm a FBI firearms instructor. I'm a CCW instructor. I'm also a national ALICE instructor. I'm going to kind of touch on all of these as we go through.
Okay, I do need to stop you just for a second. Again, they make one more announcement. We're going to limit testimony to 3 minutes because if we don't, people don't get the opportunity to get here. They won't be here. You go ahead.
Anybody want to give me your 3 minutes?
Sir, I'll be on the committee.
All right. The law enforcement response to an active killer event has changed throughout the years. As we've seen now, we go solo engagement to an active killer event or active shooter event. We do not hesitate. We do not wait. In Cape Girardeau County, we have everybody in Cape County is certified in this tactic. It's called solo engagement. We don't wait for other officers. We get in, we go in. Again, I'm being a little rushed here. The civilian response on university campuses and throughout the United States is moving towards a tactic called ALICE: alert, lockdown, inform, counter, evacuate, or evade. Run, hide, fight. Strategos has programs. Everyone has programs. With the ALICE program, we have at Southeast, we have trained over around 11,000 people now in this program. Throughout Southeast Missouri, including your district, sir, we have trained school districts in this coming up into the university state. This program gives people the tactics, the ability to think outside the box in case there is an active shooter or active killer event. It is no longer getting down, hiding, waiting in the corner, and locking down. What it is now is you have more tools in your toolbox to make decisions. You evacuate whenever you have some type of alert. You counter if the individuals are harmed. Like I said, throughout Southeast Missouri, this program has taken off, and throughout the United States. Right now, like I said, I've done about 300 instructors nationally and several thousand within the Cape Girardeau area. I've heard a lot of talk about CCW. The CCW's qualifications are at best a minimum amount. You have to shoot 40 rounds at a static target from 7 yards. Law enforcement miss about 85% in a dynamic event, and that's what these active killer events are, or active shootings are. They're active events, they're dynamic. We are training people with the CCW class to shoot from a 7-yard line. 40 rounds is bare minimum. You know, and the senator over here was saying earlier that it's not against the law to carry it on campus now. It's in one of, you guys have put it in the statute where it's not against the law. However, us with a moral compass that do have the CCW permits, we do not take them anywhere that the instructors have said, do not take them. Even though it is not a violation of said law, unless they do something outside the norm and then attention is brought to them. With these active events, it is not hard with the civilian response of Alice, Strategos. Again, there's a whole host of different companies, different techniques to run, hide, fight. It is not hard to thwart and stop an active killer event. And we see it historically, nationally, throughout these active killer events. You can look at stats. I know one of the senators said something about all these are occurring in higher ed institutions or places that do not allow CCW. Well, if you really look at the stats, about 45% are happening in commerce areas, like your business. So if you really start looking at where the numbers really are, where the greater values really are, it's out here in the public. One of the students was talking earlier about confined areas, or we won't have negligent discharges.
Okay, I might have to have you sum it up.
Okay.
Because I announced at the start of this hearing that I have to do that occasionally.
I understand.
It's not anything to do with your testimony, it's just the way it is.
I understand. One thing with concealed carry on college campuses, if you look at the dorms, the residence halls, the open communities, our thefts on campuses are thefts of opportunities. If you look at one of the bills saying that they will relinquish their weapon when they enter the building, going from class to class, you figure the students are going to 10, 15 different buildings a day. That means these weapons are going to be pulled out 10 to 15 times a day and unloaded and reloaded throughout the day. So if you start getting these students in this concentrated area, again, you're looking at a group of 19 to 22-year-olds. We have 12,000 students on our campus, about 3,000 that live in the residence halls. Now, if you're looking at this concentrated area, I have not had a chance to talk on mental health issues. When you start looking at this concentrated area, with these people pulling weapons out 10 to 15 times a day, there is more of a chance of a negligent discharge.
Any questions of this witness? Senator, go ahead.
So it was your university that participated
Yes,
in
ma'am.
that diversity exercise. It sounded incredible.
It was a very well thought out program. I'm part of the diversity commission down there, and it was very well thought out by the group that together.
Is that Senator Libel's district? Whose district is that? Whose district? Wallingford, okay. I thought it was your district. I thought it was your
These
district.
three rivers.
It's Senator Wallingford.
is-
Well, it was a fabulous exercise, and every single university in this country needs to do something like it.
And we've let that video go viral.
It has. That's how I saw it on
It
Twitter.
really needs to. You have any questions?
I do not. Thank you so much for coming up today. Next up, make sure you fill out your witness form, sir. Sir. Fill out your witness form.
Already did.
Did you? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, remind everybody you have to fill out your witness form and leave it on the desk, and we'll gather them up later. Okay.
Mr. Chairman and fellow senators, thank you for allowing me to speak here. I'm Jim Moran. I'm Director of Public Safety for St. Louis University. And prior to that, spent 35 years with the St. Louis City Police Department. And I'm here in opposition to the allowing carrying of concealed weapons on a college campus. Many of my prior peers here from universities all over the state have spoken and have shared similar thoughts that I have. But I would also like to add for the rest of the time that we are a private institution, and we would like to see that the senators consider a private institution's ability to control what it allows on its private property. And we feel very strongly about that, and we hope that you will consider that as well. In speaking about CCWs on campus, I would just say that if we're doing this to provide safety and security for our students, I would like you to consider that by allowing CCW permit holders who have no other training than getting a CCW permit with a weapon into a situation that brings danger to someone, you may be putting them in a position that they would not succeed. And I would offer to the committee that a better method for that is to train force like we have at St. Louis University. We have 80 officers, armed officers, that are trained. They're on campus 24 hours a day. We have active shooter training.
All your security guards are armed?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All of ours are armed.
And you're with St. Louis University?
I am, sir.
Okay, I just want to say that for the bill sponsor to know.
Thank you. Yes, we are, and we go through active shooter training, as the other universities spoken here before. We also do train our faculty and staff in active shooter training, and we encourage that with everybody to get that training. I think we are better prepared and better responding piece than it would be to have a CCW permit who has no training in a dynamic situation where there's a threat. And I would also like to say that by putting CCW permit holders in a campus community, we're also introducing the possibility of the responding first responders, which in our university would be us, followed by the St. Louis Police Department, in a position to not know who the shooter is and who is the CCW permit holder. And I think that puts the CCW permit holder in a very bad position, as it does for the first responders. So thank you for letting me share.
Okay. Any questions, witness? Senator Dixon.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I had just told you I was going to try to hold all my questions and just make my statements when I present my bill, but there was one specific question. Sir, thank you for being here. You mentioned the exception for private universities. And, I know you're aware of the law, obviously, from your work, but the private property exception that's in statute now, which covers private businesses, it may be an open question, but do you feel that because your university is private property that it would also be covered, or at least perhaps covered by that exception in statute currently?
Yes, sir.
We have not had any discussions among the committee about how to further narrow that or define precisely what constitutes private institution, because there is some ambiguity. It might behoove us to look at that just to kind of close that open question a little bit. I would argue that if a university nor its students take any state aid, I'm referring to access scholarships and things of the like, then they cannot be classified as anything other than private. We do not have that in, I think, either of these bills, but I can't speak for Senator Munzlinger. I'm certainly open to going down that road if we need to.
Thank you for considering that, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Any further questions as witness? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming today. We've got a couple of opposition. Anyone else here in support? Support?
Yes.
Okay.
You're in opposition. Opposition.
Okay. One more. Are you in support?
Yes.
Anybody else in support? Raise your hand. Okay. You may sit down, address the committee. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and you may proceed.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to have this committee to speak about this important legislation. My name is Phil Brexy, and I'm a junior student in nuclear engineering at Missouri University of Science and Technology in Rolla, Missouri. I am the president of Chi Alpha Ministries there and the president of College Republicans there. And I have also been given permission by the chairwoman of the Missouri Federation of College Republicans to speak on their behalf, as well as I have been given permission by the president of the
What was that group again?
The Missouri Federation of College Republicans.
Okay.
Their president, Hannah
Okay.
Harris. So Jake Buxton spoke on behalf as well, but I'll also speak on their behalf. The president of the Missouri S&T branch of ASUM has also given me permission to speak on their behalf as well. To begin first, I want to present some numbers that will challenge the rhetoric that I believe ASUM will be presenting here later today. I don't know if they have any representatives here in the Associated Students University of Missouri. But to provide some background, recently at Missouri S&T, our branch of ASUM launched a public survey of campus where 1,000 out of the university's 9,000 students participated. Of those over 1,000 students that participated, 75% of respondents expressed strong support for legislation that would allow concealed and carry on Missouri college campuses. It is Ms. Cox and my understanding that not a single university within ASUM, other than ours, launched a public survey or held any public forum to hear from their students. So to counter the opposition that will be heard later today, I simply want to say that these individuals will be misrepresenting their student populations and misleading this committee. Starting from my own statement, when we look at the history of college campus shootings in the United States, and we see mass killings like the ones at Virginia Tech in 2007, Northern Illinois University in 2008, Waycoast University in 2012, or most recently at Umpqua Community College in Oregon last October, we find one very large thing in common, and that is that the students on those university campuses were not allowed or encouraged to carry concealed firearms for their own protection. Certain individuals will argue that there's no clear evidence that the presence of firearms will decrease the frequency and severity of shootings. However, I would note that there is no clear evidence to point to the contrary. Apart from this, it has become abundantly clear to the parents and students of this nation that no matter how many firearm bans we institute, criminals simply keep refusing to obey the law. Another argument that the left wants to point to is that there is a risk with firearms being stolen or being misplaced, being misused. And earlier it was mentioned that college dorms do not have safes. I would like to note that safes are not the only way to keep a firearm safe from other individuals. You can buy very cheaply pistol trigger locks. You can buy cable locks that go through the barrel and through the chamber of the pistol. They're very cheap, very affordable. I was mostly raised in Illinois as a young boy, and I remember in elementary school we had an individual come and talk about gun safety. At that meeting in elementary school in Illinois, every student was getting a free pistol lock. That sounds almost outrageous, but when you talk about gun safety, it makes sense to fund and subsidize the very devices that can keep us safe from guns. And so if the issue is really keeping students safe, then while organizations in this university are providing condoms and birth control, why can't there be organizations that would provide pistol locks, cable locks that would go through barrels and chambers of pistols, simple, cheap, affordable devices that would keep American students safe. On behalf of the previously mentioned organizations, I'm proud to pledge our full support behind SB 731 and SB 589. And in closing, I would simply like to leave this committee, along with all the challenges of this legislation, with one simple question. If a shooting were to happen here in Missouri, who among you would stand proudly and explain to the parents, the family, and the friends of those victims why they were not allowed to protect themselves? Why crony legislation and policy kept them from putting up a fair fight? And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions of this witness? Senator Shots.
Apologize for slipping in here like that. What university did that study come from?
Missouri University of Science and Technology. And if you want, I can get you in touch with Caitlin Cox.
No, that's fine. I didn't hear this one. It was Missouri S&T. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no further.
Yes, to inquire. Tell me, how do you explain Hunter Park?
I'm actually very familiar with that situation. Our organizations tried to counter a lot of the rhetoric that was going on. Most people did not know this. The Park was a student, but he was not a fully enrolled student, full-time student, and he was not good at academic standing. Professors and individuals at the university, as well as fellow students, had questions about the individual. And truly, as students of the university, and this is not just me saying this is a lot of people, Republican and not, we are very offended by Hunter Park continually being brought up. He's brought up as if he was an example and a representation of all the students at our university. He's one anomaly out of thousands of students in the university system. And it's ridiculous to continue to point to him as the only good evidence against concealed carry on campuses.
Okay, so what about Virginia Tech and senior Song Wei Cho? He's another example, and actually he did have a mental health background and killed all those people. So that's not a Missouri example, but I mean, it is another example.
Well, as I pointed out, in Virginia Tech, the students there were not allowed or encouraged to have firearms. If students would have had firearms, they could have defended themselves. Simply the presence of firearms probably would have deterred him from committing the acts in the way he did.
Okay, so what about Westerly Flanagan, who was in Virginia? He was a former journalist and killed 2 other journalists, legally had a gun, had a mental background check, but he still killed a journalist and wounded another journalist. Any explanation for that?
It's an unfortunate situation, but again, if there were more guns present, I think the crimes would have been deterred. But we're talking about college campuses and students. I don't know what journalists have to do with it.
Okay, so Oregon, the Oregon shooter that targeted his English class, that's on a college campus. Mental health background check, legal possession of a gun. How do you explain that one?
Again, the students there were not allowed to have firearms. It was a rural community college. Students would have had firearms if allowed, and that event would not have happened.
Okay. Any further questions? Elizabeth, seeing none, thank you, sir, for coming up today. Next up in support of Senate Bill 7.
Come on.
What's that? Where you come up?
For opposition.
Come on, Ava.
Devices here.
There's a phone here.
Phone here.
Philip? Philip? Did you leave a phone?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Otto Pagan speaking on behalf of the Missouri National Education Association. We would like to go on record in opposition to Senate Bill 731. And just to let the committee know, we will have a substantially similar position on Senate Bill 589, and it's not my intention to repeat remarks, but we've turned in forms of both. On behalf of our association, and also in particular our student members, our community college employee members, our 4-year institution members, we are guided by, and you all have heard the counsel of those who are tasked with campus security. Our primary concern is that you all are faced with a state policy question, and that is, should you change the law to take away the option for the institutions to have the regulation of this policy on their campuses? I think there's consensus in the room that this is a very serious issue. We have 4 parts to our platform, the very first of which is safety, both for K-12 and for higher education. So the question is, the leadership that's required to really move forward. Security is going to continue to be an evolving process. If you came to a K-12 school 5 years ago, you were probably able to walk in. I'll hazard a guess that if you come to a K-12 school in Missouri today, you will not be able to walk in, because after Sandy Hook, there was an institution on the part of the institutions to say we need to have access to the buildings be regulated. We don't want to have someone just walk in. We want to have the staff identify that person through the camera. So the institutions have a lot of opportunities to express that leadership. I think you've heard that there are new and emerging tools that help maintain the kinds of best practices like the ALICE program. Our counsel would be to keep the existing law that allows that leadership to emanate from the local institutions as they move forward and draft the specific policies that best protect the students and the staff on the campuses. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions about it?
Thank you much, Mr. Chairman.
You know the drill.
You've got the books.
Yes, ma'am, you've been here a long time.
Great. Hello, thank you so much. My name is Becky Morgan. I'm a volunteer in the Missouri chapter leader for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, which is part of Everytown for Gun Safety. We're an organization that's about 3 years old, and we have 3.5 million members and voters nationwide. I'm here in opposition of guns on campus. I would like to say that Virginia Tech has come up a number of times during the course of today's proceedings. Colin Goddard was a student who was sitting in French class in Virginia Tech. You know, he was shot that day. He still carries those bullets in his body. He went to Texas last year to be very vocal and outspoken against campus carry in Texas, and he's a spokesperson of our organization, Everytown for Gun Safety. I would also like to point out that our organization, and myself included, fully support the Second Amendment. We also fully support the use of common sense. I think that we've seen, because of the high volume of people here who are experts on these things and who know these things firsthand, that they oppose this legislation, that this just doesn't make common sense. So I would urge you to please consider that and take that into consideration. A lot of great points have been made today. I would like to point out that I am the parent of 2 teenagers, a junior in high school who is looking at colleges right now. So this is something that parents and students will have to consider. It's also something that I don't feel that universities should be made to suffer because of those kinds of choices. It's the politicians who unfortunately may disregard the high volume of people here and experts who are opposed to this legislation. And so you'll see this reflected in our votes in the future. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned is we're worried about the unease for chemistry classes that keep chemicals and gases kept at high volumes in pressure situations on college campuses. The presence of a firearm and the potential for an unintentional discharge of that firearm can have very, very severe consequences. In fact, in 2014 in Idaho, not long after the law was lifted to allow enhanced carry permit holders to bring those guns onto Idaho campuses, an Idaho professor unintentionally discharged his firearm in a chemistry class. Thankfully, he only shot himself in the thigh and nobody else was seriously harmed or injured. Another thing, I just really encourage you to listen to all the experts from Missouri who are here today. And also I would encourage you to listen to retired Admiral William McCraven. He's the former commander of the U.S. Special Ops Command, and he was in charge of the command that took down Osama bin Laden. He also happens to be the chancellor for the University of Texas Systems in Texas. And he came out last year, he was very vocally opposed to this legislation. He said that it makes campuses a less safe environment. So I know my time is short, but as a mom, as a voter, a taxpayer, and a responsible citizen, I really urge you to use common sense and look at these measures and listen to the experts who took a lot of time out of their day and their time at college campuses to come here and to urge you to use common sense and oppose these measures. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Hang on a second. Any questions of witness? Seeing none, thank you very much for being patient today.
Thank you.
Next up in opposition. Anybody else in opposition want to speak? You want to grab a seat. Anyone else? If there's an open seat, go ahead and sit down, and we'll get right to you. And we'll start with you, Megan.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Did you introduce yourself?
I'm about to, sorry. My name is Caitlin Seam. I am the executive director of the Associated Students of the University of Missouri, so ASUM, ASIM, or how some others refer to it. As you can probably guess, I do have a few comments that I'd like to make. I want to talk about the discussion that our board of directors has. It does have members from the Missouri S&T campus, from UMSL, UMKC, and Mizzou. The process in which we took to arrive at me opposing this legislation today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have about that process, but I wanted to raise some of the concerns. So we brought it before our board of directors. A lot of the student leaders, many of them, the majority of them elected from their student governments, brought a lot of concerns up, specifically related to how this would be dealt with in our dorm rooms, and the potential impact this could have on suicide rates and other issues. The student body population, the majority of them, again, it was a majority vote of our board, not a unanimous vote, as the earlier student did refer to the S&T campus, did not support this, but ASUM operates off a majority vote of our board of directors, so the rest of the campuses did feel that it would cause more harm than good when looking at the different benefits, the potential benefits of conceal and carry on campus in a potential active shooter situation, or some of those other issues and the dangerous situations that a lot of our students could be faced with conceal and carry on campus. And the majority of the students did feel that it would create more dangerous situations than it would create any potential benefits. And it is the majority opinion of the ASUM board, which does represent 77,000 different students out of 4 universities, I think that the student earlier, while we are aware that there are many various opinions on these issues in the student body as well as in the general public, I think the student was misinformed by the member at ASUM what he was representing today. So I am representing ASUM. As executive director, I oversee all 4 campus chapters at ASUM. And I'm here asking for you to oppose both of these bills. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Senator Dixon.
Thank you, and I apologize again for bumping in your question, but I understood the previous student to say that he was here on behalf of the chapter there at Rolla.
He was not here on behalf of the chapter at Rolla. He was a student from Missouri S&T. I think it was miscommunicated to him by the ASU campus president there, who did oppose, who does support this legislation as he discussed, but was in the minority on the ASU board of directors in that opinion. They did have a discussion about it, but he was not representing ASUM's opinion on this, because again, we do operate off of majority opinion, and that's the process that the organization uses when representing that many various voices.
Sure. I do understand that. Question I have for you is, was this I'm assuming from what you're saying and listening to his previous testimony that the vote that you took was those that you mentioned that were elected to represent the students. It wasn't the students themselves.
We didn't conduct a vote of every single of the 77,000 students. It is a board having 3 members from each of the campuses, right, and then 3 members from ASU Central. Some of those are elected and some of those are from the ASU campus chapter themselves.
I see. So you understand kind of the position that we're in, because we're all represented, elected to represent citizens who have expressed opinions to us, and they make a difference.
Absolutely.
Some of our previous testimony, I would just point out that not everybody that's elected is a politician.
Right.
I hope that's the case. And you've done what your organization feels is right, and I commend you for that. We're obviously charged with a similar duty. I just wanted to make sure that we kind of drew those similarities, because it's not a perfect system, either one.
And I absolutely understand that, and as I said, I know that you all have heard from 2 other students earlier today that do support the legislation, and I'm here telling you that, a majority of students we've spoken to that are elected and represent their student governments and have a pulse on what the general student population thinks oppose the legislation, and so that's what I'm here to represent today.
Did the organization have any comment or stance, any public comment on the home invasion that occurred at the NU, the dorms?
The organization doesn't take those kinds of stances. We have our 4 legislative issues that we typically work on, and then as other issues come up, we do revisit like this gun issue, and we did have a discussion about it on our board, but we don't take those types of positions specifically on the campuses, although we do consider all those types of arguments and different perspectives of the students on certain issues like that when discussing something like this.
I think that one kind of went to the court system because of the armed intruder who's, I believe, not an individual from campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Senator Shelton.
Yes, to hire. First of all, I have to say and commend you. You are a wonderful spokesperson. You are very eloquent and focused on what you have to say. And in your explanation, you just really explain everything awesome in an awesome way. So thank you for that. We did have some questions. The senator and I were thinking about testimony earlier today about the different perspectives that people have. And it sounds like the majority of the board had the view that it is not a good situation for us to adopt this type of policy. Did you guys at all talk about the perspective that I was mentioning earlier, where like Senator Curls and I, we've had crosshair stickers on our nameplates. I mentioned earlier I had a guy in a white pickup truck with a shotgun in front of his truck in front of my house, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, did you guys talk about from the perspective of people of color or the LGBT community, how they would feel with this type of policy that's in place?
It was definitely a perspective that some of the student government leaders brought, and particularly discussions that have gone on in relation to previous issues that have happened on the AMU campus, obviously bringing concern. And so as student representatives of those populations, I know that was definitely a concern of some of the student leaders that definitely informed their decision and their viewpoint on it.
Senator Crowell,
Thank you, to inquire.
proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. You did a very good job on your testimony. And I appreciate you clarifying his role. I think it was a bit confusing for some. I think afterwards I did kind of understand that I thought he was been given permission to speak on behalf of his organization, I think, later.
Right, which I'm the person that gives that.
Well, and I didn't think he was talking about ASIN at that point, but I had to think about, it's okay. I think you clarified it for us and everything was good. But you said some of the students were concerned about firearms, of course, in the dorms, increase in suicide rate. Were there other things that they had mentioned that they were concerned about specifically?
I think just the addition of alcohol and other situations in the dorm, how would that affect Greek housing in any way? You know, that wasn't clear to a lot of the students, so that was a concern for them as well. And one thing I had meant to discuss earlier is that I know this Oregon student situation had been discussed, and that was a gun-free zone. And actually, a lot of supporters of conceal and carry would say that it was a gun-free zone, but that's actually not true. Maybe it was said it's a gun-free zone, but it allowed for particular instances. If you have a conceal and carry, free to be able to carry. So actually, you could conceal and carry on the Oregon campus where that shooting took place, which I think is which is what I had done research on and trying to prepare for this testimony. Which I think is an important point to make. So all of those factors influence a lot of the student's decision on this. And this is not to say our organization is nonpartisan. We are not anti-gun. We are not anti-conceal and carry. We do not support conceal and carry, the majority of us on college campuses.
I do. I think it was I do think the commissioner, of course, alcohol and firearms, I think poses an additional threat. And I do think it was a bit short-sighted earlier to infer that, you know, folks have been allowed to carry guns at least in the and I think if the person is sick enough to, for those things to transpire, it's probably going to happen anyway. But thank you.
Okay, any further questions of this witness? Thank you very much for coming today. Make sure you fill out the witness form, leave it on the desk, please. Officer, your name.
Good afternoon, my name is Tom McEwen. I'm a sergeant with the University of Missouri St. Louis Police Department in St. Louis, Missouri. I've been with the campus for 21 years. I want to speak out against both of these bills. We're concerned about carry concealed on campuses, actually asking students to do something, or faculty, staff, for that matter, to do something they're not actually trained to do and prepared to do. We as law enforcement officers, we are fully licensed officers within our campus. We do carry, obviously. I think we're the ones that are trained, ready to handle these types of incidents. We expect our students, I believe, to go to school to get an education, not to go to school to engage people in a violent act. That's kind of what we do. That's what we're trained to do. We have the tools necessary. We have the training necessary. I don't believe that the carry concealed, as minimalistic as it is to get that, is enough for somebody to go ahead and take action when they're inside of a classroom or in a public area on a college campus. It's just not enough. We shoot twice a year, at a minimum twice a year. We do static targets as well, but we do dynamic targets. We do we put people through drills which stress them out in order, because that's the thing we're going to face. I'm a parent of two girls. One is going to start college next semester, and I want her focus to be on education. I think we want the students to focus on education. We want the teachers to focus on teaching. We want the custodians to focus on cleaning up buildings. We want the facilities people to make the facility safer, not to carry conceal, to take out an intruder, or to engage in active threat. That's what we do. That's what we're trained to do. We're very well trained at that. At least in our St. Louis area, I'm part of the MACTAC instructor school. We teach all of the St. Louis areas the same way. So whether we solo go in or we go in as a group, we're all trained the same way. And I don't think we're not expected to train our students, to work with our faculty and staff, to work with our facilities personnel and all the carry conceal people to engage a target, to eliminate a threat like we are. So my testimony is completely against it for the sake that we have trained professionals able to do the job at hand. It's a bad day when these things kick off. There's no doubt about it, but that's what we're there for. The other thing I think is a more personal level, I don't believe that the faculty, staff, students, guests, visitors, whoever's we're going to allow carry concealed really has stopped to think about this, the mental implications of taking a human's life. I think that we're forgetting that whole, as somebody mentioned, common sense. It's easy to say that you're going to do something and take action, but when it comes right down to pulling that trigger and taking somebody else's life, I'm not sure that everybody's capable of doing it as fast as they're able to say that they are. That's a lot to ask of somebody. That's going to be a life-altering decision to be made. As is, you hear people that are regretful that they didn't take action. Those things are very impactful for the rest of people's lives. So I think we need to slow down, common sensely think this through. Is this what we want to do? Carry conceal on campus. I think it's a bad idea for those reasons.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much for being here, and I'm glad that the university that I represent is here to speak out on that. Just a point of clarity, UM St. Louis is one of the few universities that have a majority of their students who are off campus. There are very few dorms, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the population of students have a different type of background. We say in St. Louis that UM St. Louis is the stepchild of all the universities in the university system in the state. And our population, which you agree, is mostly minority.
Absolutely.
And mostly working class. And as we talked about Rolla, or Mizzou, or Truman, that population of students is different. Our issues dealing with guns is gun violence in the metropolitan area. And so there's someone who stated earlier that there's not a problem with stolen guns. We would say in our urban area that that is a huge concern. Is that correct?
It's an enormously huge concern.
Yes. And so on your campus, I do research on your campus dealing with this radioactive mess. But on your campus, how many instances do you recall, or how many times during the year are cars broken into?
Yeah, we get, as they mentioned earlier in the other testimony, theft is the number one thing that happens on campus, whether it's cars, dorms, or somebody just leaving something out unattended. Theft is the number one thing.
Okay. And we've talked about this in our chamber about the reporting of stolen guns and where they end up. In fact, that bill that was overridden, I didn't vote for the override, but the bill that was overridden, there was language in there that I added that dealt with reporting of guns. And there are some people who were against that, reporting of stolen guns. I don't know why they would be against that, but they were. And, you know, this gets to the point of culturally we have a different situation. Like what goes on at Mizzou, or what goes on at Rolla, or what goes on at MSU, or whatever else we have in the state is different from our community. And so I'm really pleading with all the folks who like are pro this legislation to recognize that we have an issue back at home in urban St. Louis and maybe Kansas City. I can't talk for Kansas City, but you know, I would actually give up my life if there was a person in the room trying to shoot. And I wouldn't have a gun, but I would give up my life for someone else. And that's the biggest sacrifice. And I'm asking you, those who want guns, how many of you unarmed would give up your life for someone else? I would do it. I would do it. You know, we were being shot at before a year and a half ago. Tear gas for 3.5 hours. Some of us showed up. And if there was a real bullet, I would have taken it. instead of shooting at someone else. I just wanted to make that point because there's another side of this. The people who are being courageous enough who don't have guns give up their lives.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly. Are you aware in your role, thank you very much for what you do, and thanks for being here. Are you aware during your tenure of 21 years there, since concealed carry is not expressly against the law in Missouri, are you aware of any incidences on your campus where you had to ask a legally permitted carry holder to remove their weapon or leave the campus?
I can't recall any of those on our campus.
So you would probably agree with me that while it is not against the law, most good and decent people abide by the spirit of the law that are holders, at least from your experience.
From my perspective, I would believe that's true. I hope so.
And secondly, I want to be expressly clear that I'm asking only for your personal opinion and not the opinion of your employer. Do you consider the policy of prohibition? I wouldn't care except for the folks in the other room. Again, just your personal opinion. Do you consider the policy of prohibition by some universities, their security officers, from carrying even personal weapons? Do you consider that, or would you consider it a wise decision? Not asking you to second guess them, but if you were in the administrative role, just your personal thoughts. Obviously, you work in an area that's where you're armed. What would your decision be if it was yours to make?
Well, I could probably only speak for those agencies I have worked for, which is every time it's been a commissioned armed police officer. I couldn't speculate why they wouldn't arm their officers. I think obviously an armed officer, a highly trained armed officer, is better capable of handling the situation than just a carry concealed permit holder.
And we're not talking about arrest powers, we're just talking about the ability to, bare minimum, not even a campus issued weapon, just their own person. And lastly, are you aware of any, are you familiar with the concealed carry training? No, you talked a little bit about it. Are you aware of any instructors who have made it a point to encourage their instructees to go into a situation like we discussed here, an active shooter situation, which are unfortunately becoming more and more common, and to be a hero?
I'm not aware that they're asking them to do it, but it sounds like this bill is asking them to do that. It sounds like we're giving them.
Which part of the bill is doing it?
Well, taking out the carry concealed, but just to allow them to have a carry concealed seems to give the impression that we expect them to take some kind of action. Otherwise, why are we having it in there at all?
So my question is, you're familiar with the training. What instructors or what part of the training encourages that? Because everything I've heard is they tell them the exact opposite and drill into them all day that your only use of that weapon is to secure your own safe exit, not to go and engage a shooter. You're not the commissioned officer. And I appreciate greatly the work that you do and all those in law enforcement. You are a training veteran. We want you to do that job. But I'm just wanting to make sure that there's not some rogue instructor out there that's, because I'm not aware of any. But from your experience, if you've seen that, we certainly want to know.
Yeah, no, I'm not aware of any rogue instructors that are out to tell them to do something that's, but again, the instructors are trying to get them to get the carry concealed permit, and that's pretty much it. Once they get the carry concealed permit, there's not much retraining, qualification, or reshooting. That's what we do twice a year at a minimum for 21 years. So we got a lot more experience than that one time shooting 20 rounds.
Oh, no question, no question. I'm just saying that I was here in 05 when we voted on the bill, and we were told, I'm from Springfield, the home of Wild Bill Kickoff on City Square. We were told it was going to repeat those days. We have had, since 2005, one incident where somebody thought they were going to be a hero, and that person was prosecuted. We just haven't seen that occur, and he was trained not to do it. He was charged with the unlawful discharge of a firearm. We have not seen any of that stuff play out. If there's instructors out there that are encouraging people to engage the active shooter, as a first option, I hope to learn about that.
Right, but the opposite would indicate that they're being challenged or their life is in danger. I think that's what the carry concealed would address, is that if their life is in danger, they have the ability to protect themselves. We're not asking them to necessarily reach out and take action, but they have that ability based on that carry concealed.
So if somebody's pointing a gun to their head, are you saying that they should have to sit there and just take it?
No,
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Senator Romine. Apologize for having to step out, and if this question didn't answer, let me know, but we do have a lot of security officers on campus that do not have weapons on them. Do you see that as a target on their back? If you have an active shooter on campus, they are perceived as being the authority or the security guard, but they're unarmed. Will they be targeted, or do you see that as a problem?
and that's hard to say who would be targeted based on who the active shooter is and what their purpose is there. You know, if it's domestically related, probably not. If it's angry against a professor or teacher, probably not. I don't know that there'd be, unless they come there as anti-establishment for that security officer, I don't know why they would be expressly targeted.
Well, that they would, let's take it a step further. Do you see that there needs to be something done, and the best opportunity would be possibly to train? And I mean, right now we're defenseless. Our students are defenseless. They need protection. And we're not even doing the basic, which is arming our security guards to allow them to fully do the job that we think they're doing on campus. Would you not agree?
Well, my position is opposed to the bill, and I believe that they're putting more guns out there is not going to make it safe. Not what's in the trained hands of the police department, police officers. I don't think just putting more guns out there is going to make the campuses safer.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Kirk.
Thank you. To inquire. So, and maybe this is at the center. So is there the inference that the security guards cannot carry guns on campuses?
There are
Is that your
some
question?
universities that don't allow.
We've had testimony here from other universities that do not arm their security guards.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further questions this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much, Officer, for coming. Next up, are you in opposition?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Introduce yourself, sir, and make sure you fill out a witness form for me.
I have a witness one right
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in opposition? Grab a seat.
So,
There's a seat open, just come on up.
so I would like to thank the honorable senators for increasing their interest in our protection. This is actually an issue of serious concern for many other students. The threat of an active shooter. My name is Jonathan Canale. I'm from St. Joseph, Missouri, and I'm a student at Truman State University. And so I have a great family. My father is a police officer in St. Joseph. And so I lived around a firearm all my life, and I know how to treat one, how I should not handle one in certain situations, etc. I also recently I've gotten my class to get the conceal and carry permit. I have yet to file that with the sheriff's office. But my main concern is, I guess, that there are many people that go to Missouri schools. I think it's one of the triumphs of our system that so many different types of people from different backgrounds get to attend school. But my issue is, well, you senators, you tend to see the best of us, the show horses of our, or the cream of the crop that visit you here in your offices. And there are students that are not as capable as those you see every day. There's a friend of mine last year that lived across the hall from me who has a portrait of Lenin on his wall. So whereas I welcome the idea of increased security, I'm not sure if I would want everyone on my campus to be encouraged to go after firearm ownership. I again think it would be, I'm always happy to see interest in in public safety. It's something that runs in the family these days, I'm not certain about. And to reinforce the testimony of the previous individual, there is empirical evidence out there that suggests that there is a inherent, I guess, disruption in humans to take the life of other people, and that's according to Lieutenant Colonel Grossman, who is an expert in killing and is required reading for I believe, the United States Marine Corps. Again, thank you so much for having interest in our protection. We're very pleased that there is interest in keeping us safe. But I would like to see that if conceal and carry must be introduced to college campuses, I would prefer it if it was in some way controlled by our authorities, by the universities, or at least, or maybe even limited to faculty. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for coming today. Any questions or comments? Good job. Next up, introduce yourself and your name, please.
Dan Taylor, President of Southwest Baptist University in Baldwin, Missouri. I will try to be brief, which is hard for a college president to do.
Say it again.
I'll be brief. That's hard for a college president to do. Based on 40 years of experience in higher ed.
Turn your thing on.
It is.
No. You turn it on and off with his hand.
Okay, sorry. Based on 40 years of experience in higher ed, it's my humble opinion, and it is an opinion, that this conceal and carry bill will make our campuses less safe. I base that on working with students now for 40 years. I love my students. Every college president I know, one of their greatest concerns is safety of our kids. No, that's what I think about. When I talk with parents, talk with prospective students, I talk about safety. That's one of the issues we talk about quality of education, but we also talk about safety. I think more guns on campus would make our campuses less safe. One quick story. Last week, we had a young lady whose mother had passed away during the fall semester. She's a beautiful young lady and a really good student. A student said something to her, a very unkind remark, probably unintentional, but it caused her to go into emotional distress. She became suicidal. According to our RA and our resident director of that dorm, she could have gotten hold of a gun. She would have committed suicide. What a tragedy that would be. So that is my concerns. Thank you very much for listening, and appreciate the opportunity to speak. I didn't touch it.
Yeah, it's old equipment. Any questions? Senator?
This is what we were talking about earlier. I don't know if you were here when you were meeting 4 or 5 hours ago.
All day.
But this is a triggering event. That's what we were talking about earlier. And we don't know when someone is going to experience one of these events where they are unstable. And even if, they did the background check, they also had a missile background check. All these people, Oregon, Virginia Tech, they all legally had conceal and carry. They all had a mental health background check, and still they killed people. And so I'm glad that you did testify today, and I have to say that your testimony was a little brief. It was very brief.
Thank you.
Which is awesome. Thank you.
Actually, your question this morning triggered my thought to mention this event we had on campus.
Thank you.
Senator Schatz.
Is there anywhere that they've passed campus carry statistic data that proves otherwise, that you stated that it's in your humble opinion, that it would be less safe? Is there any evidence out there that you can provide this committee to the contrary of that?
I haven't done that research.
I don't think anybody has yet provided any testimony to this committee at this point to that fact. And so we've had claims of experts from multiple places, but there's been no basis of fact brought to this committee that would prove otherwise of those statements. There is concern. I have college-age kids. I understand your concern, and I appreciate your concern for the safety of students, because I think most people that are here to testify against this are concerned about the well-being of the students. I think we all know. And I think that, you know, it shouldn't necessarily be an argument between Senator Munzlinger's desire to make sure kids have safety as well as yours, and we can agree to disagree on how we get to that conclusion. But the fact that there is no evidence or no statistical data that proves otherwise, we're really, you know, going down a path that we believe obviously would provide more security. So, but I appreciate your testimony and being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Dixon.
Dr. Taylor, just want to thank you for coming up, and I apologize our schedules didn't work for our rescheduled meeting in Springfield. Thanks so much for coming up.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good university.
Thank you.
Sir. Next up, make sure you fill out your witness form, please, sir. Get your witness form filled out, sir, would you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Next up, go ahead. Anyone else in opposition to Senate Bill 731? If so, grab a seat. Anyone else? Okay, we're gonna go these two, and I'll go back and make sure we don't have any more supporters. And then we're gonna move on.
Very good.
Sure,
I passed out my written testimony. It has a couple of maps that I'll reference. My name is Sean Grove. I'm here on behalf of BJC Healthcare. We're nearly 30,000 employees and hundreds of thousands of patients that we see each year. And we are here in opposition to both pieces of legislation, but we'll be just speaking on this one and do a ditto for the next one. Admittedly, the more pernicious is the one before us at the moment. If you look at the map, the first one is the Barnes-Jewish map, and the second one is the WashU map. The way that this bill really doesn't define the Institute of Higher Education presents an incredible challenge for us. I just can't stand here before you and suggest it would be a good idea to allow concealed carry in Barnes-Jewish Hospital, St. Louis Children's Hospital, or any of the other facilities that are intertwined with WashU's campus. So I'll be concise and leave it there, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, as your security guards armed?
We do have armed guards.
Okay.
We have police. We hire off-duty police officers in certain circumstances.
Okay. Any questions of this witness? Senator Scott?
I would say that in part of Senator Munzlinger's bill here, obviously, when security is provided, I mean, you're kind of in a unique situation where these hospitals are teaching hospitals, and so, but there is some security provided. So there may be, you know, it may not be that there is a metal detector per se at the door, but obviously there's a protection afforded to those students. So there may be some compromise that could be met to accomplish situations for that.
I'm here speaking on the way that it's currently drafted. The way it's currently drafted, it suggests that at every entrance, and there are many, there would have to be, armed guards and metal detectors, and we certainly have those at certain entry points, EDs, ERs. But suggesting that we would have to, wand every pregnant mother or cancer patient or other patients and visitors that would have to come into our doors, it would suggest that type of environment would not be beneficial in our hospital settings.
Okay. Any questions, witness? Seeing none, thank you, sir, very much for your patience today. I went over. Next up, ma'am, you're ready to go.
Hi, my name is Mary Gross, and I'm testifying as a private citizen. I am a mom, but I'm not testifying on their behalf. There are two things I'd like to say. One is the point of clarification. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you.
You're better now.
People were talking earlier this morning about mental health background checks. And so what I want to clarify about that is I am a retired emergency room nurse. And so if a patient is admitted to a mental health facility involuntarily, that involves the courts. That is a matter of public record. That is accessible to a background check. But patients who are admitted voluntarily or are just outpatients being treated,
that information is not accessible to the background check system. So I didn't want anybody to be comfy, feeling that, oh, this person passed a background check when, a mental health background check when, obviously, you're being a little bit misled by that. My second point is, I wish I had my paper with me, but I have looked at meeting minutes from the University of Virginia. Thank you. No, the Board of Visitors from October 24, 25, 1824. The Board of Visitors, when you read those minutes, it's obviously that the Board of Visitors directed campus life. Two of the people on that board were James Madison and Thomas Jefferson. James Madison is the author of the Second Amendment, and it clearly states in those minutes that firearms are not allowed on campus, and any student who challenges another to a duel or accepts that challenge is immediately expelled with no appeal rights. So I know we're not here to debate the Second Amendment, but I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thank you. Any questions this witness?
Yes.
Bill.
I'm impressed. And I'm going to do something we do at home, snap to that. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today and being patient also. Okay, I didn't see anyone else in opposition, so anyone else in support of Senate Bill 731, raise your hand. Okay, come on in. Anyone else in support? Seeing none, this is it on support. Opposition is over also?
I'm not incredibly loud, so I'll speak into this. My name is Courtney Cox. I'd like to clarify a few things on behalf of the Missouri S&T campus, because again, I am from that campus.
Which campus is it?
Missouri S&T, Missouri University of Science and Technology in Rolla.
Okay.
Yes. And so, no, I'm not the Ms. Cox that Philip was referring to during his testimony. That would be my younger sister, who is the president of ASUM on that campus. ASUM does not support this. They do oppose that, and I want to make sure that that is entirely clear, which I believe Katie's team did a great job of making sure that you're all very aware of that. I do just want to go back to highlight a few of the things that Philip said, because I feel like with what he said, he almost discredited his testimony, but the numbers that he stated were true with the survey that was conducted on that campus. They did receive more than 1,000 responses within 72 hours. Approximately 750 of those responses were in support of this bill. That being said, that survey was sent from the student body president to a listserv, so an email group of all of the campus presidents that are registered as campus presidents for registered student organizations on campus. So that is a pretty diverse group of students, as you can imagine. We have a lot of registered student organizations on campus. That being said, I just wanted to make sure that that was very clear, that that survey did happen, that they did have a lot of support. I would not say that that is something that is consistent across the UM system schools. I would say that Rolla is definitely a much more conservative campus than the other three, and I just want to make sure that what happened in Rolla isn't necessarily discredited because of what happened during that testimony. I will say personally, I'm no longer a student. As I said, I graduated in December, but in my time on that campus, I was a resident assistant, and I would say that personally, while I'm very supportive of conceal and carry permits and the options to have that permit and to carry your gun, I don't think that firearms belong in university housing. I understand that 19 years old, you can have your conceal and carry permit, but I don't know that.
So what you're saying is you're kind of in support, but you're not really sure?
I would be in support of this if there were restrictions on the places that they were allowed on campuses. Yes, I am saying that I'm partially in support, but I'm saying that the climate within residence halls and fraternities and sororities is not such that you would want firearms there necessarily. And I do understand what Philip was saying about being able to secure your firearm, but I don't support that idea. But I do support the spirit, the direction that this is going to make campuses safer.
Okay. You need to tell our witness form.
Yes, I will.
And just leave it on your desk. Any questions this witness can fill them out.
Okay, to inquire, again, I want to thank you so much for being here and offering your perspective. It is different, and there are multiple perspectives, and that is absolutely okay. But being a young person, having the confidence to come before this committee is an exceptional duty. It is part of what we ask all young people to do, and you've done it today. So thank you very much for participating in your government.
Anyone else have any questions this week? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming today. Senator, informational purposes only. You want to hear for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator Gaines, closing remarks you'd like to make on Senate Bill.
I thought we'd never get to this point, Mr. Chairman.
We're here. We're at the train stop.
I took a few notes, and I certainly appreciate everybody for coming by and testifying. You know, one thing that I failed to mention earlier too is that just the pure thought of it not being a gun-free zone might deter a potential mass shooter to come into that area or onto that campus. So just the thought of that might deter that action. You know, it was very interesting too that I did hear some of the college or campuses say that they encourage some of their staff and employees to take concealed carry classes and that, but yet I haven't heard one of them that says they allow it. However, I have heard, I'm not going to say who or which campus, but I have heard that in some instances they do allow staff to carry concealed. You know, concealed carry permit is great. Like I said, and I believe it was echoed by, I believe, Senator Dixon, that when you take that concealed carry class, it teaches you to protect yourself and get away from the situation. But like I said earlier too, the key part of that training is to be aware of your situation. So you may not get into a situation that could cause you to be in danger. You know, Oregon was mentioned too, and I believe at that time, the Oregon case might have been in a lawsuit. And actually, it wasn't clear about the guns on campus in that Oregon shooting up there when that happened. You know, I want to go back to one key point that I've mentioned, and I've heard other people mention it. Criminals don't obey. These are gun-free zones. These are targets for criminals, and that's been shown very clearly. Lieutenant Grossman was mentioned. I have listened to Lieutenant Grossman. He believes that everyone should be able to protect themselves. Very clearly. Very clearly. And you know, one key thing, people say, well, firearms could cause danger, but I can tell you one thing. We've seen fire extinguishers. Fire extinguishers don't work. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Munzlinger. This will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 731. Next up, Senate Bill 589, Senator Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members, Bob Dixon, District 30, presenting Senate Bill 589. Similar topic, slightly different approach, and then I will also try to answer some of the concerns that have been raised this morning that I've not addressed on the chair there. Senate Bill 589 does not add anything to the statutes. It just deletes 17 words. There is no requirement or opt-out. There's just the deletion of the exception pertaining to institutions of higher education. We do not change any of the language in subsection 10 dealing with elementary or secondary that are existing in there. Mr. Chairman, I've heard a lot of things this morning, a lot of great discussion. A couple of things that I'll mention. In this advent of social media, I thought in the fall I would just throw out there to those that I connect with and also those that I'm not connected with this particular issue, and that went viral. I've provided the committee with a selection of some of the comments. A number of them are people who work at universities. There are a few who are campus security folks. I want to read just a selection, a few of these. And these are all statements that were made in the public venue. One person says, the only place I am a victim with no ability to fight back is as a student veteran at Mizzou. Thank you for the bill. Another says, from a Missouri nursing student, thank you. Another one says, it's pretty sad when students are told they can't even carry pepper spray. When many walk to classes while the schools are in bad parts of the city, they're told they can use emergency phones on campus to call campus police. Never mind, they're scattered far apart on the campus, and they have to wait 10 minutes for them to show up. That student was from Kansas City. One was an instructor who said, please do this. I'm ready to start doing this, and I work on a campus. Another says, I work as a campus security officer at a, quote, gun-free university. No security officer is armed. I have 22 years of military service. 18 months of that was active duty military police. I have my CCW. I cannot protect the students on my campus. I'm not even allowed to protect myself. Something just isn't right with that. Another says, I am totally in favor of this, particularly given how the crime in the Mizzou campus seems to be far worse than it was when I went there. If my kid were there at that campus or most other campuses, I would want them to have the CCW and I'd want them to carry. And then he referenced the armed invasion that occurred back in May, one of the residence halls. Another says, if an 18-year-old is forced to hide from a mass murderer and beg for his or her life, I don't see why they should not have the means, any means, to protect themselves. Yet another, some students already carry concealed for the defense of themselves and others. They risk losing scholarships and their futures to do something they consider their right. And none of them have snapped like so many fearmongers claim people would if they were, quote, allowed on campus. All it would do is remove the penalties, which include being asked to leave, that already responsible gun owners would face if they needed to defend themselves or another person. And the last one that I will read is a student who said, I stopped seeking permission a couple of years ago. They happen to know the law, in my investigation of the comment, that it is not prohibited in statute. A few things with regard to what other states are doing. The following states allow colleges to actually choose: Iowa, Indiana, Virginia, Wisconsin, South Dakota, North Dakota, Kansas, Arizona, Hawaii, Alaska, and California. Some states expressly prohibit, which I won't read the list. Some are vehicle storage only, which Nevada, Montana, Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and South Carolina. And of course, Texas is in the middle of going through what they adopted. And that is not determined yet because it's up to the universities to come back with that. 4, state law requires public universities to allow concealed carry. Idaho, Colorado as a result of the court case, Mississippi, and Utah. And then 4 additional ones allow concealed carry in restricted areas: Oregon, Michigan, Minnesota, and Alabama. A couple of things that have been mentioned today that I just feel like refuting. We've heard that the suicide concerns, and I don't think there's any one of us up here that isn't thoughtful and concerned about the very real aspects of campus life and the intensities that are there. But studies do show that 90% of suicides are committed in the home because most college students over the age of 21 live off campus in many instances. Allowing concealed carry on college campuses would not have the significant impact that we're talking about with regard to that. Guns on campus would distract from the learning environment. I would say ask anyone in a right to carry state when they noticed another person carrying a concealed handgun. It is concealed for a reason. So, and we've already talked about the training focusing on getting out of the situation. Some have said, talked about or inferred that those that are concealed carry permitted might snap and go on a killing spree. Contrary to popular myth, most professionals agree that the notion of a previously sane, well-adjusted person simply snapping and becoming violent is not supported by case evidence. And I've got all this stuff documented. I'll provide you the committee copy. Someone mentioned alcohol, and obviously there is already statute on the books pertaining to having a weapon and being intoxicated. We're not repealing that. We're not changing that. And I would just point out to those that raise that issue, in this building, there's a lot of alcohol that flows through this building. And it's expressly stated in statute that any member can carry, and we added to that a few years ago, and I was part of that, making sure that anyone who was employed in this building could carry concealed. We've had no instances of problems with that. The last thing that I'll say, Mr. Chairman, I know we're limited on time. We have repeatedly heard that more guns are not going to make campuses safer. And I will, there's actually another point that I was going to make with that. Yeah, here we go. In the states that allow citizens to be issued concealed carry handguns at the age of 19, before I go to the closing there, actually at the age of 18, there's been some concern that because we reduced the age a couple of years ago that would be a concern. On the contrary, you still have to be 21 to purchase and go through the background check. That only covered those that perhaps they were given a gun as a gift, a parent had trained them, they've been around guns. But I want to point out that among the 44 shall issue states where local authorities cannot regulate and require qualified applicants to show a need before the applicant is issued a concealed handgun licensed concealed carry weapons permit. 6 states allow, without special provision, for any qualified person 18 years or older to be issued a concealed handgun license. Those states are Indiana, Maine, Montana, New Hampshire, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Based on FBI, Department of Justice Violent Crime Stats, and this was for 2006. The crime rates for these 7 states, when ranked with all 50 states and DC, rank as follows. And this is out of 50 states. Indiana was 30th. Montana was 42nd. South Dakota was 47th. New Hampshire was 48th. North Dakota was 50th. And Maine was 51, obviously, because of the DC inclusion. In closing, I would like to refute the point that's been made. Someone, I think, inferred that it's inconceivable that any logical person would believe that the answer to violence is more guns. Well, and I appreciate those that find the humor in that. But let's think about things, because that's what we try to do in this building. One might have just as easily told Edward Jenner, the man who discovered the late 18th century, that cowpox virus could be used to inoculate people against smallpox. It could have said it is inconceivable that any logical person would believe that the answer to disease is more viruses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that closing. Any questions of the bill sponsor? Seeing none, anyone in support of Senate Bill 589? Senate Bill 589. Anyone in support of Senate Bill 589? Yes, sir. Okay. Just get ready to go once and twice. Okay. Please show up and you may proceed.
Thank you, Senator. Members of the committee, Whitney Daniel, National Rifle Association, here to support Senator's bill. Obviously very similar to what we heard earlier. I'll keep my remarks very brief. We support this effort. Clearly, it's a distinguishing decision by this body, of this chamber, and the committee to decide which one to go forward with or both. We're comfortable with either version. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions as well? Seeing none, anyone else in support of Senate Bill 589? Anyone else in support other than the gentleman that's walking up right now? Anyone else? You raise your hand for support. Okay, one more in support.
Good afternoon, Senator. Ladies and gentlemen. Tony Shepard, I'm here as an individual, not as anybody else, so I guess, on other terms. Been sitting in the other room, so I apologize, Tony Shepard. As an individual, I do have my CCW. I do a lot of work on the side for people off campus and also on campus. I do carry a weapon. I do work in the St. Louis area. It's a really respectable area, but we've got some bad people up inside there. We've had a couple instances of run-ins going on and off campus. We've got work truck, and many times we store the weapon in the work truck. The safest place for my sidearm, instead of being in a work truck where folks can break into it, is on my side. If I'm having a problem walking in either daytime or nighttime, it is better if I have it on my side instead of the fire extinguisher laying on the side of the building up on there. I apologize, I'm going over anything else. We had an instance up there one time. I did have my sidearm on me. I was just stepping out of the truck. I was approached for that. The other gentleman was not armed. We did not break it out. We did not have a shootout. It was resolved to his dismay. But there are other ways to resolve many of these situations. It's not always because someone has a firearm, that's your first useful tool. That's your backup. I've been military. I have gone into the fire, as Maria has said, Ms. Chabal. Appreciate your sentiments on there. It's there to get you out of trouble. It's not there to take on the whole force. You're not prepared for that. We have our great and wonderful law enforcement. Unfortunately, most of these cases, the first 3 minutes, next active shooter's done. What they try to train many of us, and it's what I tell folks also, take care of yourself. If you can, take care of the shooter. Get down, get out. If you're still shooting, law enforcement is on the way. They could mistake you for the active shooter also. What you want to do is secure the situation and get down. This is by no means, I'm an individual. I'm not a student. I'm not on there. This is just an individual worker coming on and off. But disarming me, by the time I go into St. Louis, we've had some CCW folks up in there. You go into the stadium, you walk out, you're a victim. You go on the campus, you walk out, you're a victim. It's let me do my job. I appreciate it. Thank you for putting up with me.
Thank you. You're always welcome to this committee. Senator Chappelle.
Thank you. Tony, always thank you for your advocacy. And we have said it time and time again that there are issues where we disagree, but there are plenty of issues where we do agree, and we work together on those issues.
We're still bouncing back and forth on a lot of them. We're okay.
Said that for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I know. We're working on it.
further questions, witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else in support? Don't see anyone in opposition. Senate Bill 589, please come forward. Come on up, sir. You also.
My name is Ryan DeVue. I'm the Chief of Staff at Missouri State University. I just wanted to come up and reiterate President Smart's testimony from the prior bill and state the same opposition in response.
Thank you very much for staying around.
Fill out a form.
Sorry for the delay. Yes, we do need to fill out a form. Any questions of this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming up today. Need a pencil? You got the security and watch out for anything. Sir, you're next. Introduce yourself, and you've been very patient today also. We appreciate that.
My name is Dr. David Foote. I'm a psychologist. I'm here as a private citizen, and I just want to make one comment based on Senator Dixon's.
Talk in the microphone, please.
Senator Dixon's statement. Well, I'd like to respectfully disagree with his comments about suicide at home. I think that's painfully short-sighted, and while I think that saying that dismissing the issue of suicide as taking place just at home is not really taking seriously the issue with young men and women on our college campuses. And we're talking about an issue where 20,000 people a year commit suicide with firearms. Now, most of those may very well be at home, and that's fine and important, but to just say, oh, that maybe most of them take place at home, and so we shouldn't take seriously the fact that we're going to be introducing guns onto campuses as an important factor in this. I think that we can't allow that fact to just be dismissed out of hand. And the fact that this is a single-step method where we're introducing that factor where impulsive, emotional decisions can be made, as the college president talked about earlier today. I think that's incredibly important, and it's a terrifying possibility that young people could be harming themselves instantaneously, taking their lives. And just to say, oh, well, most of that might take place at home is an unfortunate thing that we cannot dismiss out of hand. So that's my statement, and I want to make sure that we take that into consideration.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, Senator Carlos?
Yes. Quick comment. I agree, he did say 90% at home, and it could be, Senator Dixon, you probably have received some information that 90% of that happens at home. But I will say it probably happens at home because that's the most comfortable place when that person is in distress at that time. And I will say that on college campuses, these students live there for 9 months out of the year. So that could technically be considered their home, where that might take place, their comfort zone, when they happen to be in distress 9 months out of that year as well. So,
and that may be, when we're talking about when those statistics are made, that may be considered their home. We don't even know statistically where those records are done.
I see they live in, typically, yeah, as I said, 9 months out of the year.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just clarify my comments.
Okay.
I really appreciate you being here today. I want to make
you have what's wrong with you. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I want to make it very clear that my comment was not dismissive in any way. I was just simply quoting the statistic which I included in the documentation I provided the committee. And never did I say all. The statistic there was 90%, but we heard the testimony today that from a number of universities that a large percentage of the students do not live on campus. That was my comparison. I would never be dismissive of such a very important issue, particularly as someone who has had family members who have been victims of suicide. I'm very sensitive to that. So I just want to clarify that documentation has been provided.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right. Anyone in opposition? This is, anyone else in opposition, need to raise your hand right now? Okay, 2, 3. Anyone else in opposition? All right, that's it, that's these 3. You want to come on up, I'll grab this 2. Thanks, sir. You need to fill another witness form out, you can take it. Once I got it, okay. Anybody else come back ever again on this bill? Go ahead.
Once again, I'm Sergeant Tommy Kim with the Elmsford Police Department. My testimony stands as earlier. I just wanted to go on the record for standing up against that 589 as well as the previous 731. For the same reasons as before, the level of training on concealed carry is not adequate to do the job that it appears that we're asking them to do. Let the trained professionals handle those active shooters and let the students and the faculty and staff go about their business with an educational purpose there. Let us worry about the safety of the campus.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions as witness? Seeing none. Officer, you got your hand up. Oh, you want to go?
Yeah, sure.
Go for it.
Auto page of Missouri NEA. We would also like to go on record in opposition to Senate 589. You have our form. Substantially the same concerns. We would like for you all to keep the existing law that defers to the local control and decision-making and leadership from the institution to best craft the policy as it relates to the regulation of weapons on campus. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our witness? Seeing none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead, officer.
Kenny Mayberry, in opposition to 589.
I'll fill out over.
You have.
There's been a lot said today in regards to CCWs. One thing that I'd really like to make clear is CCW holders are not trained for a dynamic event. And whenever you are in an active shooter event, it is a very dynamic event. Now, I know we've said, we're not training them to go after anybody, but when the bad man comes after them, it's going to be a dynamic event with a group of individuals.
Yeah, I have to say, a bad man coming after me, I would be taking action.
Correct. As you looked in this room earlier today, how packed it was. If the bad man came in that back door and one of you were a CCW holder, could you make that shot?
Yeah, I understand. Go ahead.
As a dynamic event occurring, you have 50 people trying to rush.
Yeah, there's no doubt in anybody's mind.
Correct.
I would suspect would think that.
So the training needs to be more intense, other than the 7-yard, 40 round.
Yes, sir.
And as we're looking at having weapons on campus and residence halls, I want you guys to be aware that Southeast, we had an individual brought a shotgun to campus. They took it to his residence hall and had ill intent. But luckily, the RAs seen a weapon and let us know about it. Well, if the concealed carry is adapted, it's not going to be the anomaly. It'll be the norm. So we got to make contact with the student and prevented that student at that time from committing suicide. And then at a later date, unfortunately, that student did commit suicide away from the university. And we have had a suicide by an employee at our River campus on the park around noon. So again, we're not in a bubble. We do understand that. However, we are taking steps here at Southeast and all the other institutions, like I was talking about with the ALICE program, where we are giving people the tools they need to be successful and to survive an active event. Not just with a firearm, but with anything and everything they have at their disposal. And telling them that it's okay to do what you have to do to save your life.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming today and being patient all day. Any questions this morning? Seeing none. Anyone here for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator Dixon, you're recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the committee's indulgence on both of these bills.
Welcome. I appreciate the committee spending most days. I also appreciate the citizens that came here today for this hearing. It had been easily just recessed it and did it some other day, but since a lot of folks travel from long distances, appreciate your patience. We got it in. I thank everybody pretty much got to say pretty much what they wanted to say. They didn't get to say it. They probably heard somebody else say it. So I seen a lot of heads going up and down. I seen some going like this. But at any rate, at least we had a good discussion, and appreciate the committee being patient and everyone showing up today. This is what your government's all about. So with that, make a motion to adjourn. So moved.